Okay, everyone, we are back in action. Is that correct, Martina? We are now live on YouTube, and a recording, of course, is being made, and we welcome everyone to the Township of Douro-Dummer. This is a special council meeting. This meeting basically is the result of a discussion we had at our last meeting. Theoretically, we probably could have taken care of this discussion at that time, but that didn't happen. So we decided to have another meeting where members of council could submit any questions or concerns regarding our ice floor rental policy and the reopening of the community centers. So we won't be long today. We're just here to hear the report. I know Deputy Mayor Moher had some concerns at the last meeting, and I think we could probably ask staff to deal with that first and perhaps answer some of those questions. So let's just play it comfortable and try to get through this. It probably shouldn't take too long. So item 6.1 is the ice floor rental policy of our facilities. Vicky and/or Martina, how do you want to handle that? Go ahead, Martina.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask Vicky to review the policy.
Okay, go ahead, Vicky.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay. So the policy covers the detailing of the booking process, the payment procedures, the terms and conditions, including insurance, cancellation, dressing room, and auxiliary space usage. The policy is a statement of intent to be implemented as a common and consistent procedure. So the details of ships own facilities, including the Douro community. It's okay with you, Your Worship. I'll just skip to the points in question, or do you want me to go through?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know why, but it's just not a good connection, maybe.
Is it okay if I just skip to the bullets that were in question, or do you want me to?
Yes, please do just that. Yes.
Okay. So ice booking process number 3. All ice floor rentals will be done at the municipal office, online, or over the phone with administrative booking staff. Rentals will not be confirmed by facility attendants. So with the new responsibility of pay before you play concept, as also recommended by our consultant, the community centers are not set up for payment options. So from a financial responsibility, it's better to have less points of contact and less money exchange.
We lost her.
Having said that, they could do it online on their cell phone. Can you hear me?
No.
It's breaking up, but
Sorry.
You're on and off,
It's
Vicky.
the bandwidth. It's the bandwidth. You're losing speed.
If you turn your video off, maybe we could hear you. Maybe that would solve it. Sometimes it does. Okay, try that, see how that works.
Okay, so with the responsibility of paying before you play concept, the community centers aren't set up for payment options. And from a financial responsibility, it's better to have less points of contact and less money being exchanged. Having said that, if you were at the arena and wish to rent, you could do it online using your cell phone through our open public booking site. Can you hear me any better?
It's
Yes.
it's working now. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so question number, or ice booking number 4. All ice rentals, details, or altercations must be completed through the manager with no time trading or bookings to occur between individual user groups. So the user group has made a commitment to take the complete block of ice. They have followed a process and been allocated ice as per the priority sequence in the ice allocation policy. If we allow one to start trading, this could open us up to breaking our own allocation policy by varying the usage. So there's a lot of user groups in line for that time slot. So contract user groups must be accountable for that entire block. Did you want me to stop for questions or?
I'd rather you finish your report and then I'll ask anybody for comments. So you might as well wrap up. Yep.
Okay, will do. So under payment procedures, number 2 was users that request to book ice time as statutory holidays shall be required to pay the approved prime time rate. There's an additional cost to doing business on a statutory holiday. Staff get paid double time, and good business sense would be for the township getting some cost recovery. Under prime time hours, statutory holidays was indicated in the fees bylaw that was already approved at the last council meeting. Number 4, all tentative ice bookings are held for 24 hours only. Payment in full and the signing of a rental contract is necessary in order to guarantee a booked time slot. So I believe that if it was a hall booking situation, which would be a separate booking, we're just dealing with ice and floor. But in those, I agree that it should be a longer extension for holding tentatively because they're not as high of a demand and we can wait a little longer. But ice is a hot commodity and I can't hold things tentatively longer than that 24 hours. I'm keeping in mind that there is a public booking site. So if it looks open, it could be snapped up instantly. If they called the administrative office and asked for it to be tentative, we could put it in the system for tentative. But what I'm saying is, I think 24 hours is fair in the ice industry because of that open public site that we have. And number 5, organizations, groups with multiple bookings are required to make in advance monthly payments on their rental contract. 1.25% per month late fee will be applied. So yes, this is advance payments. The concept again of pay before you play applies for everyone. Large user groups are accustomed to paying monthly. They'll just pay prior to instead of after. And in hopes that this will help our finance department avoid payment that has been in arrears. Tournaments, special events, competitions, and hockey schools must pay a deposit of 25% of the rental fee at the time of booking. So these events create an exception in the full payment before you play. As these fees are not always collected in advance, so a deposit is acceptable. Yes, it should be noted that the balance is paid following the event. The terms and conditions, the insurance. So user groups and individuals who do not provide their own liability insurance at the time of booking will be charged a surcharge to provide coverage under a user group program with the municipal policy. The surcharge is in accordance with the fees bylaw. So I think this was discussed during the fees bylaw last council meeting. And just it's important for the township to transfer the risk in the way of a user group program to minimize their direct risk of claim. This is a cost recovery program to the municipality, and the surcharges were taken directly from the insurance provider.
What is the amount?
They were approved in the fees for service bylaw, and it was all broken down by a one-time rental, a low-risk rental, a medium-risk rental, alcohol event, non-alcohol event were broken down in the final page of the fees bylaw.
Out there, I couldn't read. So, okay, let it go.
Ice rental cancellations. So all users wishing to cancel blocked ice time previously confirmed must do so prior to October 1st and up to the March 1st. So this is a typical date set up, and it's based on OMHA's deadline for their team rosters to come in. They need to have that information by October 1st, and the end of the regular season would be March 1st. And that's a typical date that's, and I just put it in to clarify it so we would know moving forward if some teams had canceled off. Number 2, organization and groups wishing to return reoccurring ice time to the municipality after the initiation of the contract must provide a minimum of 2 weeks notice to allow time to rebook. Amendments to the contract will be made should ice be reallocated. Should the ice be not reallocated, the contract will be binding. Irregular one-off times will not be permitted to cancel in a contract. So the idea of a contract shows that the user group is making a commitment, and the commitment is regular. In order to rebook the ice slot, notice is needed to find another user. If that cannot be ensured, we must hold the user group accountable, or the township must be prepared for the loss of revenue. So skipping down to auxiliary space use, number 1, organizations utilizing the facility will be responsible for spectators attending their event, including admission, conduct, and control. I agree with the deputy mayor's comment that to add that it's shared responsibility of the township and the user group. Skipping to number 4, the comment was missing there about the facilities are smoke-free and vape-free should be added. I agree with that comment. And illegal drugs and alcohol, there was a suggestion to reword it as failure to comply must result in the cancellation of the event, and if required, the police will be called. And I agree with that comment. And lastly, under enforcement, the 3 steps of enforcement, I agree with the comment of removing number 2 and replacing it with a written warning. And I think that's everything on that.
Okay. Carl, a number of these were your comments. Do you want to say anything now?
There's a number of them I don't necessarily agree with Vicky, but I don't think there's not much point in belaboring them any longer. I think item 1, ice booking process. Item number 3, are we online now, or is that to be soon?
We are currently online for viewing. We haven't set it up currently for that the outside person could book.
So if an arena, if somebody came to the arena and they, let's say this COVID is over and wanted to rent an additional hour and they had their Visa card with them, could staff not book that? Until we get online?
Staff could book that for the individual. I don't know if that's something, a duty that should be included to staff, but that's a possibility that we could add that to their daily duties. The other opportunity could be perhaps providing a tablet to the user that they could go online using our Wi-Fi and do it themselves. We're trying to get the user to book themselves in a perfect world, and but the staff could walk them through that if needed.
The other one.
Martina, go ahead, Martina. Sorry, Carl.
No, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the other issue that Vicky is trying to get at is at the moment, the only payment types that would be available to users at the facilities would be check or cash, because debit transactions, we don't have a debit machine at either of the facilities. And that means we can't take Visa, but we are able to take Visa through the office. So that's why it would make more sense for people to book through the office. So I think that might be a piece of the puzzle that might be missing at the moment.
My only point is a lot of activity at the community centers takes place Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday when the office is not open. And that's revenue that we're missing, could be missing. But let it go.
Okay. Anyone else with comments? I don't know if we're going to be changing the world today with all these things. We're trying to get clarity on it. Go ahead, Heather. Heather?
Thank you. Yep, sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to speak to a point that I just want to find it again about paying basically prime time rate, payment procedures, item number 2, the comment about there being a lot of hockey or tournaments going on, it might discourage bookings. I did have an opportunity to talk with representatives for minor hockey since our last meeting. And in fact, the Ontario Minor Hockey Association sets blackout dates, the schedule kind of well in advance, and for the most part doesn't include statutory holidays. So I believe what we're talking about here during this time, and staff can perhaps confirm, are individuals who are booking. It's not really a tournament minor hockey problem or opportunity, but it's more so individuals who want to do a family skate on Boxing Day or something to that effect. And I don't see a problem with that, because there are costs to having staff be there. We've got to cover those costs, and we're paying them our staff prime labor rate. So we need to accommodate that. So those are just my only thoughts. Everything else, what's been presented, makes sense to me.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Carl?
Just to, with all due respect, Councillor Watson, families would pay the prime rate anyway. It's only special groups that would have the advantage of special rates. But you know, it's good research. If minor hockey aren't using those days anymore, then so be it.
Precisely.
Vicky and then Sheila.
Just to add that sometimes a statutory holiday doesn't fall necessarily during the prime time.
You're
Last
freezing
year, I believe
again.
it was Family Day that occurred. Oh, sorry. So last time the Family Day occurred through the middle of the week, and daytime ice was not necessarily prime time. So it was at a very discounted non-prime time rate that the ice was given away for. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicky. Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you. With regard to the ice booking process, item 4, about trading between groups, does this happen often, Vicky? Can you tell that from the past records?
I'm not familiar if it's happened often. I know that there was some bookings that were just didn't occur through their booking, so they just wanted to be, you know, they can't come a day because of something else going on. And what it's kind of saying is they need to be accountable for the entire block, whether they use it or not, because there's other people that would legitimately use it all the time. So, and in the situation that it was, say, for the youth, and then they traded it to maybe an outside resident, then we're breaking out of the allocation policy that it should have went to a resident priority before that. So it's just cleaner if they commit to the full contract, whether they use it or lose it, and whether they have one person show up and use the ice or 16 people.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments? This is mainly for information right now to clear up the discussion we had at our last council meeting. Any other comments or questions on this subject before we move ahead to the reopening of the centers? Okay, then I guess we'll have a motion to receive that verbal report, please, from someone, from Tom and Sheila. All in favor? All opposed? That motion's approved. Item 6.1 now, the reopening of the community centers. I'm sure we don't even have any solid info on that yet, Vicky, but how's it stand right now?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report was provided to Council for information and just to provide an update of the preparation and changes being taken in regards to reopening of the community centers. So I'll just give my report first and then address some of the comments that were made. So collaboration of the protocols and procedures were created with guidance and recommendation from public health, the provincial regulations, and networking with various neighboring municipalities. It is our best interest to take a soft approach to reopening, keeping health and safety of our staff and our patrons the utmost importance. We want to ensure to the public that our facilities will undergo enhanced cleaning before opening and continually while opened. As well, staff will take certified training on recreation facility cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing principles through the Ontario Recreation Facilities Association. Anyone visiting our community centers will be screened and asked for contact information for contact tracing. Patrons will be asked to stay home if they are sick. People will also be required to hand sanitize before entry into the facility and wear a mask throughout the building. There will be arrows and signs providing direction of where to go, ensuring one-way traffic flow and limiting access through the entire building. Anything your group brings into the facility must be taken out on departure. No items will be stored at this time. It is important for us to know whether our clients' usage this year will change based on the current situation. Team sports may only be practiced or played if they can be modified to avoid physical contact, and cohort restrictions on a number of participants on ice is adhered to. The regulation now does not permit teams to play different groups outside of the 50 people maximum league. With cautiously reopening, limits have to be made. General public access should not be permitted and no spectator viewing during this initial phase. No public skating and no tournaments at this time. Canteens will not be available inside the facility, but we have explored the possibility of outside concessions. ICE users will be expected to come fully dressed and gather their team together in a staging area outside. Then staff will escort the group into the facility as one unit. The facility will not be left open for participants to trickle in, as we need to monitor touch areas. The convener will then provide a roster of their attendance upon arrival. Participants must wear face coverings inside and can only be removed once they are on the ice, engaging in active skills or play. Players will have 10 minutes to put their skates on in a predetermined area in the lobby, as no dressing rooms will be open at this time. The more access points we can eliminate, the better. I've had a lot of correspondence and communication with our clients, particularly the user groups who've requested a regular block of ice time. I've asked them to discuss with their members what the season would look like modified and verify their commitment of ice usage. We can only proceed putting in the ice based on the viability and the contractual needs of our user groups. This will determine delaying the regular season and or staggering times and or whether there is a need for both pads of ice to go in. In consideration, if there happens to be a second wave of COVID, potentially the province could revert back to stage 2 and the community centers would be closed down again. For small communities like us, the affordability to take ice in and out is not feasible. So that's why I'm recommending that we wait. In conclusion, staff recognizes the inconvenience these new guidelines will have on groups and individuals in their traditional regular season. But please keep in mind that this collaboration of protocols and procedures were created with guidance from public health and are necessary to ensure that all the clients and staff remain safe. We will continue to review, reevaluate operations, necessary steps, and changes ongoing. And should restrictions ease, there will be adjusted accordingly. So I just
Okay.
like to, do you want me to
Okay.
explain the thought process of the dressing rooms or that was in question?
My question, Vicky, was going to be with this last report. There is a group of arena managers throughout the county. Is everyone basically taking the same approach to the situation?
Yeah, so for the most part, people have been delaying their opening and getting most of the similar protocols in place. I'd like to explain the thought process on the closing of the dressing rooms. So
Go ahead.
early in June, associations like Hockey Canada, Skate Canada, Ontario's Women Hockey, and Carhartt Hockey all started to lay out their return to hockey protocols and framework. And as you can imagine, this leads to slight variations in what was expected from their members and in return the arenas. So it was discussed at a recreation arena managers networking meeting that it would be easier to adopt one guideline from these associations across the board for all of our user groups. So if it was said that dressing rooms wouldn't be available, how can you let some groups have a dressing room and not all? So keeping a standardized approach, dressing rooms were withdrawn from that initial startup. I realize the idea of youth coming in with their equipment is manageable as they likely get driven to the rink. However, yes, understandably, adult leagues are not familiar with this concept. Under the regulations, change room showers are not permitted and cleaning protocols would not allow for the time for participants to linger in a dressing room post-play. The thought was to eliminate the dressing room use from the start. And as we grow and anticipate that new year, 2021 will allow us to evolve. There is a formula that public health has shared for calculating space in order to maintain physical distance. And I calculated the space on our dressing room size, and every cycle would require all dressing rooms used. So we could only have 8 people in a dressing room. So every cycle would have all 4 dressing rooms being used. So this would not allow for us to have back-to-back rentals. So if you can, so what some of the municipalities are doing, they're doing like a 15-minute in the dressing room, a strict 15 minutes, and then a 45-minute rental. So they're cutting into your rental time, ice time, and then a 15-minute afterwards. But then I would need to come in and need 30 minutes to clean all those dressing rooms because I can't bring a next group into the facility. So if you can imagine like your regular 5 to 11 p.m. time slot on a weekday gives you 6 hours of rental time. If I use dressing rooms and use that scenario, I would be down to 4 hours of rental. I'd lose 2 hours every night because of that lapse time. So again, the thought process was to start without the dressing rooms. We have a well thought out plan for at least putting the skates on in the lobby. And then the next user group can do that as well. But dressing rooms create a bit of a bottle up for us.
Heather, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship. Vicky, I appreciate the challenges and the thought that has to be put into reopening the facility while keeping everyone safe. I'm curious, you talk about kind of the networking group that you were part of that looked at kind of all of the policies kind of, or that are kind of being put forward by the various user groups, associations. How many different user groups are we looking at for potentially coming in when we reopen, whenever that is?
Okay, so currently we have a commitment of 40 hours. A local residents groups have committed for 40 hours, non-residents 16 hours, and 14 hours have been canceled from user groups from this initial phase to the end of the year. So currently we have potential for 56 hours.
Per week, is that? I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
Is that per week or?
Yes, that's per week.
Okay.
So typically operating Monday to Friday, you could operate potentially 6 hours a day, 5 to 11. So 30 hours there. And then Saturdays and Sundays, say 7 a.m. to 11, would create an extra 16 hours so per day, and then 32 hours per week. So potentially there's 64 rentable hours, primetime rentable hours per rink, 64. To make it viable, the standard is between that 35 and 45 to make it worthy to put your ice in. So you should have 35 to 45 rented hours out of that potentially 64, if that makes sense.
Okay, so if I can just interrupt, because you're going a little bit deeper than I was hoping or needing. So of the 40-ish hours that are needed currently by user groups, that's basically 2 different user groups. Is that correct? Not including the private individual hours.
So currently, for instance, our biggest user group is Douro Minor Hockey. So they've requested 30 hours a week.
Okay. So just if the majority of the users are reflective of minor hockey, then I'm wondering why adopting a policy that takes into consideration kind of the associations of the associations for, women's hockey and maybe ringettes and maybe like whatever those other associations are that don't apply to any of our user groups, that broader piece. And my concern really comes down to the dressing room piece. And I understand your rationale in terms of, being only able to have 8 people in a dressing room so that people can physically distance. But I wonder if staff have considered using any of the ancillary rooms, depending on which facility, like I mix them up, the Harvest Room or the Wellington Room, the one downstairs in the Douro Community Center, using that as a change room so that you could have the home team in that larger room and people could space out marvelously, and then only use 2 of the changing rooms for the visiting team, which leaves the other 2 free for when the next group comes in. So you can kind of alternate between the 2, thus reducing the amount of vacancy. Did staff take that into consideration at all?
That's a very, very good point and a good thing to consider. Having said that, if the majority of our groups are youth groups using, they could potentially come with their equipment on. It's more of a concern for the adult leagues, but yes.
But it's not just adult leagues. Like we're talking like midget and bantam kids in minor hockey who are able to drive in terms of their age. And we're also talking about putting younger kids, in tyke who have to sit in car seats and booster seats that it may not be safe for them to wear safely. And I know that minor hockey provincially is recommending that they come dressed in their gear, but I don't believe every municipality in the area are enforcing that piece because the practicality and other safety hazards it presents when you put people in car seats or driving wearing their hockey equipment.
Carl, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to further comment, I trust the city of Peterborough is maybe not part of your peer group because I understand the city of Peterborough do have a dressing room plan for at least adults. So I don't know whether that's been part of your discussion or part of your study or not. But on their website, there is some, it is some use, but I think limited use.
Vicky, response?
So yes, Peterborough, the city of Peterborough is part of that county group. Initially, they didn't have their dressing rooms open, but they've been open for a few weeks and gotten through the initial phase. So when I say initially to get our staff around doing the screening and the escorting and then washing, cleansing, sanitizing the benches and the nets after each use, getting them in that frame of mind before we add more difficulties, or not difficulties, but before we add more procedures. So I believe the city of Peterborough started out without the dressing rooms, and now that they've been open for a few weeks and gotten a handle on it, have opened up more.
Okay, this obviously is still very much a work in progress, and I think we could be here all day chatting about this. Tom, go ahead, and then we're going to try to wrap it up and move on.
Yep. No, absolutely. And it is. This is a very, very tough situation. I said that earlier, that it's not business as usual. I did have a comment in there, and personal wise, and something that I'd looked up. I know the city of Oshawa had a quite a big deal on this, and the safety wise of trying to put children in a car seat up to, you got to be up to 10 years old or whatever in a car seat. You try and put hockey equipment on it and get into a car seat, it's not happening. The Oshawa police have issued a statement saying that it was very, very unsafe. They were not recommending to have it, kids in hockey equipment in there. As far as the driving goes, Councillor Watson, you're exactly right. And I'm speaking in personal experience years ago that I was running late and I thought, I'll get my equipment on at home. While you try and drive a car with shin pads on and hockey pants on and try and get your foot off the gas pedal and hurry over to the brake because you've taken up that much more room with the big leg in there, and very cumbersome and very, very dangerous. You could very much have an accident very quickly. So I'm not really sure I'm comfortable. And one other point that was brought up to me just recently was, you got little kids come in. What's the first thing I want to do? Oh, Dad, I got to go pee. Or Mom, I got to go pee. What are you going to do? I mean, it's just, you tell them as many times as you want before you leave the house to go. But as soon as they get to that arena and the hockey equipment's on, before they step on that ice, hey, they've got to use the facilities. So we're kind of stuck there too. So yeah, that's just some points to consider. I did talk to Scott McFadden at Dave Nelson's session down in Lang there a little bit. And I kind of got the impression from him, but I'd like it confirmed. But they were going to, and Vicky, like you said, 4 hours out of 6, but they'd have 15 minutes of the dressing room before, 15 afterwards, very strict, had to be cleaned after, but they only book for an hour, but it's an hour and a half of ice. Yes, you do lose ice time, but at least you can book it out and use it and still use the dressing rooms. He didn't say anything about how many in them, but definitely, you're going to have to wear a mask in the dressing rooms while you're in there, whether you've got 8 in there, whether you've got 10. I know a lot of these leagues are limited to 10 per team or 11 per team. Maybe we can come up with something like that, but I think the safety wise with coming with equipment to the arena it's a tough one to swallow.
This is very much a work in progress. It changes by the hour every time you somehow it's going to have to work itself out here, and we're going to have to be part of that workout arrangement. No no question. Vicky, you have a wrap-up comment? I think we'll move on. We've got to stay on top of this and make something work when it's supposed to work. Go ahead, Vicky.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And keep in mind that I did do this just for information, and nothing was set in stone, and user groups are asking what our procedure and protocol is. And it was initially, this was probably created 3-4 weeks ago at this point now. So yes, things are changing all the time. And some of our neighboring municipalities are changing the way they're doing business as well. So I appreciate the comments, and I'll continue to work on adjusting it as needed.
Understood. I think we are all on the same page about that. The fact is, nobody really knows how this is going to work or what's going to happen. Okay, Vicky, thank you very much. Could I have a motion to receive that verbal discussion and report? Carl and Heather, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. And that's going to be it. A confirming bylaw 2020-53 is up for grabs. Councillor Watt and Councillor Landsman, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved, and a motion to adjourn. Carl and Sheila, all in favor? All opposed? Motion approved. Okay, that is it for you people watching on YouTube. Thanks for being with us. This was basically general discussion time, and we're all in a quandary over this subject with COVID-19. And ultimately, we'll do the best we can do and try to keep everyone as safe as we can. This is certainly no one's favorite subject, that's for sure. Okay, that is it for Township of Douro-Dummer's special meeting, and thank you for being with us. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.